Welcome to Sisters in Crime Australia and Murder Mondays, where authors talk about their crime craft. I'm Karina Kilmore, a debut crime writer, a journalist and a national convener for Sisters in Crime, and we've been celebrating women's crime writing since 1991. Before I introduce Petronella McGovern, we acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Petronella, welcome. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
You've worked in marketing and communications, written 2 non-fiction books, and lucky for us, you've turned to crime. Last year, we had the privilege of you joining us to speak about your debut novel, 6 Minutes, which has not only been shortlisted for this year's Sisters in Crime Davitt Awards, but also for a Ned Kelly Award. Welcome again, Petronella. Before we get to the questions, can you please give us your elevator pitch for your new novel, The Good Teacher?
Thanks so much, Karina. It's wonderful to be here. Well, The Good Teacher, I'm very excited because The Good Teacher is coming out right now, so it's a perfect moment. The Good Teacher tells the story of Alison, who's a kindergarten teacher, and her life falls apart when her husband suddenly leaves the marriage. She doesn't understand why, so she starts stalking him down at his new house by the beach, and her son has also moved into the house. In the meantime, a little girl has started in her classroom, a little girl called Gracie, who's lost her own mother. So Alison takes Gracie under her wing and into her heart, and gradually becomes more and more part of Gracie's life. But as other people are watching, they wonder about Alison's motivation and whether she's crossed the line. So it's a story about kindness and good deeds, betrayal and self-interest, and the power of community to be used for good or for evil.
Fabulous. Oh, that's so good. Okay, let's get to our questions. Why is crime so appealing as a genre?
I think there are lots of reasons, but I think at the moment we do like to understand other people and what's going on in the world, and I think crime gives us kind of solutions in a nice, in a neat package of a book. And I think that crime sets up a puzzle and then we can work through it and find out an answer. Whereas in the world, everything is so confusing and so difficult. Whereas I think crime gives us a kind of neat box of answers, puzzles, solutions and answers, yes.
Yeah, that's so true, yeah. What's the scariest thing in your novel?
I think in both of my novels, at the moment they both deal with parents. So I think in the first novel, the scariest thing is actually losing a child and not knowing where they are, having a child go missing. And in the second novel, it's really Alison's whole life falling apart. And again, the life she expected has suddenly disappeared. So they're more psychological rather than, criminal issues. But more really personal issues about my own imagination, I guess, what's my worst fear, and these fears about our children and our family.
Yeah. Tell us something not in your book about a main character.
Well, that would be giving things away, wouldn't it? I've put the most important things in all the books. I think I did have a lot of backstory on Alison in The Good Teacher, and a bit more about her university life and how much she enjoyed drinking in bars at university. I don't think that made it to the final cut.
Was that your own experience?
Oh, maybe.
All right. How do you write about violence?
I don't write much about violence because I don't like reading about violence, and I think often the more left to the imagination, the worse it can be. Like I can read between the lines and imagine, the worst of it. So I really only touch on it slightly and leave it up to the reader's imagination, which I think is far more scarier than actually being on the written page.
Yeah, so true. Would you write a crime book about the pandemic?
Oh, wow. Well, it's funny because, books have been written about pandemics before, but now we're all living in it. I don't think anyone actually wants to read about it. But, and there are such sad and, sad, terribly sad stories. But I think in a way the pandemic's got a lot of crime features, like all the contact tracing and all that sort of thing. It's a very detective there's a lot of detective elements in it. So I don't think I would, but I'm also interested in, families and when we're all in lockdown and we're all in close contact. And I'm writing in the kind of domestic suspense area. So I guess I could write something domestic suspense set in a lockdown in a pandemic. Lots of possibilities there.
That's almost like a typical library murder, isn't it? A mystery house murder.
Yes. Yeah.
What is your writing routine?
It's sort of changed over time. Like I was working out of the house and now I'm working in the house. I mean, work other than writing. But now I find when I'm writing a book, the best thing for me is to get up early before everyone else is awake in the house. And I'm not a morning person. I don't like getting up early, but I just find that that's when I'm at my most creative before I've seen the news and caught up on social media. And I find that my subconscious works overnight. So even if I just write a couple of paragraphs before 7 o'clock and, getting on with other things, then the story stays in my head and I can come back to it at any time in the day. And and at the moment, then I can write later, once we've got the kids off to school and all that sort of stuff. So I find that I can write, as long as I like to keep the story in my head every day and make sure I'm writing first thing, just even a little bit, it stays in my head.
Yeah, good. Who's your favourite crime fiction character?
Well, I think the baddies are always the most interesting, aren't they? And the ones who terrify me, they're the ones I remember. When I say I don't like violence, then I always think of Hannibal Lecter and how much he completely terrified me.
Yeah.
So I suspect it's the bad ones really stick in my head.
Who are your literary inspirations?
I think you can get so much from all different authors in all different genres, and particularly when you're writing, if you can see in yourself what you need to improve, you can pick things up from other authors. I think early on I loved Roald Dahl when I was younger because the unexpected twist, was just so amazing. And now I'm fascinated by character. So I think authors like Liane Moriarty and Gillian Flynn, I'm fascinated by how they do character so well, and you're right in the character's head. So I really enjoy reading those.
Yeah, fabulous. Does your main character ever surprise you?
Yes. I can't tell you how, but I'm not really a plotter. I'm sort of in the middle. So I think often I ride along and suddenly I go, oh, is that what you're doing? And is that why you're doing it?
What started you on a life of crime?
I always loved, like I grew up on The Secret Seven and, Agatha Christie. And I always loved the puzzle. I guess it's the puzzle of working out crime stories. But then when I read the newspapers, I'm fascinated by how it got to that point. Why did the criminal or the murderer, why would they do that? And then also for the victim, how did they cope with that situation? So I think I'm interested in the psychology behind what happened. And the newspaper never gives you that, so you have to go and make up your own stories. So I think in my head, I was always just making up stories about why things happened.
How do you decide the scene of a crime?
I think because I'm sort of writing in domestic suspense, I'm interested in crimes that happen, in safe places. And with 6 Minutes, a child goes missing from playgroup. And to me, that, that's at the real heart of a safe place where you thought your children would be safe, your family would be safe. So I'm interested in kind of scaring people about real life, perhaps.
It's so true though.
Yeah, and then more broadly, and then with sort of certain climaxes in various stories, I'm interested in you know, the Australian bush and our wonderful landscape, and there's so much opportunity for settings as well with crime scenes as well.
Yeah. When and how do you work out plot twists and red herrings?
Mostly in the shower, I think. I have, like, when I start writing, I normally know the beginning and the end and a couple of twists, but not, you know, not all the detail. And I find that the best ideas come either, you know, when you've just woken up, or when you're in the shower, or when you're having a walk or having a swim or doing something else. I think they come there, not when you're sitting at the computer typing away. They arrive magically in your subconscious sometimes. Sometimes you have to work hard to find them, but
yeah. What's the hardest part about writing a novel?
It probably depends the point you're at in the novel, I suspect. So I just started my third novel, and I'm really excited about writing, but I realised that everything you write, you know, you have to say, oh, but who's the best friend, and who's this, and why would they do that? And you have to have so many questions, you know, answered to start writing. But if you'd asked me in January when I was doing the structural edit, I would have said, oh, the structural edit's the hardest part. So yeah, I think it's probably whatever point you are in the process, I think.
Yeah. And our last question for today, how would you get away with murder?
Oh, well, it wouldn't be violent because I don't like the violence. Poisoning seems a kind of a slow poison would be good. Or I'm interested in how you can use technology, and I reckon I could do something with technology to. This is all theoretical, of course.
Of course.
I think we could use technology to encourage someone to commit their own murder. I don't know.
I like your thinking there. Petronella, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Karina, and thanks, sisters.